People who have met their online friends. What made you instantly regret it? I knew a girl who would befriend American gamers to the point where they would buy her free plane tickets that she'd end up using as a free holiday. She said she loved walking right past them at the airport while they looked for some chick who wasn't her. She never gave her real photos so they never knew. She did it at least twice. Cold-blooded. I used to play a lot of Quake and made a few friends through it. About 15 years ago I moved to a state where one of those friends happened to live. We met up, and we got along fine, if not a bit awkward in person. He offered I could come stay with him anytime, but it was a ways out of the city. We sort of lost touch, but just last year his relative contacts me out of the blue. She tells me that my friend had often spoke of me, using my old screen name, and was recently killed by another of our old online friends that he had invited to stay with him. It ended up being ruled as self-defense. She just wanted to know what I knew about the killer to try to make sense of it, but I couldn't remember much other than his old screen name. He started to make things weirdly sexual. I was 15F. He was 19. He also began spreading lies about my other friends to keep me away from them, as well as pushing all his personal issues on me while refusing to see a therapist. He also put forward that he would probably kill himself if I wasn't there, which made me feel horrifically trapped. Met through a gay dating site. I didn't really make a big deal when I noticed he's totally catfishing me. Profile picture was gorgeous. In real life though, he told me he didn't like it when I say frick. And it's not like I use it in between every word. He had complaints about other things I did. I gave him the side eye and told him I wanna leave cause there's no way in heck I'm gonna give him a BJ that night. He said sure, but he thought it's appropriate to give me a parting gift. Was a fricking holy bible. Met a fellow 7th grader on Xbox, and we were pretty great friends. Even after I quit playing Xbox, we still kept in touch. He only lived 2 towns over, but it was right on the edge of where my parents would drive me. So high school graduation, I finally made it out to see him for the first time. We were having fun, until I asked him, hey, is blank coming? Blank was a middle school GF he had that we'd talk about a lot because I'd third wheel a lot of Xbox live parties with them and we had a bit of inside jokes. Him and his friends Winston chuckled. Kind of the awkward reaction I was aiming for. Then I pieced together from old memories that the other dude in his friend group used to date her too and how they'd gloat about being Eskimo brothers, so he'd probably remember who I was from Xbox as well. After a few more jokes, my friend leans in on me and goes, hey, I know you're not from around the area or nothing, but she died in a car accident a few months ago. I immediately shut up and left. They told me they were fine with it all and we should hang out again, but when you're making explicit jokes about someone whose obituary stated they played piano for the church and consecutive years on honor roll, you don't really want to go back round those their parts. You should reach out to them again if you can. Mistakes happen all the time and will happen throughout your life. Good people helping you get through them don't come by often. If you can, hit them up. We knew each other for about 4-5 years beforehand. We ended up meeting and had a great time. After I moved out of my home and to uni, he wanted to meet up Agi and I was up for it. We have a great time Agian. I end up getting into stuff because of him. He showed me cool movies. We played games together. So over this time we end up having feeling for each other. I come out as gay to my parents. I've been closeted for about 4 years. They're supportive. My stepdad is a bit taken back but accepts it. I'm happy. Until one day, we go out for lunch. A nice little sandwich place nearby my house. I ask if he wants fries. He says no, he's only up for a sandwich. So out food comes, and as soon as the plate hits the table the mother sucker helps himself to my fries. The amount of desperation that girl had, holy crap. First issue was she used a picture of herself when she was younger and thinner. She used to be around 120 pounds I believe she told me. She was easily over 300 pounds and couldn't walk for long. Eventually she took out a cane. I didn't know how to react to a 21-year-old using a cane. Someone that injured? Sure. Someone that spent 90% of their time watching YouTube and reading animes. Not fine. We walked, sat, walked, sat, walked, sat, talked for a bit. She warned me she has anger issues and might snap at me at any random time. She would constantly look at her phone and sigh loudly. We met up basically on a date to see a movie. When watching the movie she would constantly burp and fart during every romantic scene. She would cheer herself on every time too. In the freaking theater. After the date was over, I didn't want to see her again, but apparently I left a good impression. She would call me constantly every night, usually crying about how much she hates where she lives, how much she hates why she can't leave, etc etc. She wanted a relationship to rescue her from there. Life would be better if she had a boyfriend and just did her own thing. The only jobs she had were at fast food places. Those didn't last long. Each one 2-3 months at most. She constantly smelled like fish. She dropped out of college because, in her words, I couldn't stand the stuck-up people there. They really made it unbearable. Also, she does not like studying. After a while she stopped contacting me. I believe that she had taken the hint and backed off. In reality she went to another guy who is basically the literal definition of 4chan soy boy, though much worse. He can barely keep down a job. He can barely maintain himself. He drinks himself silly. And she is just happy to be away from her family. She started contacting me again, begging me to save her from him, and I'm like, oh, I have a girlfriend now. Bye. She left a 16-page Facebook rant. Haven't heard from her since. Describe the cheering after her public burps and farts. That crap is already super cringe. She sounds like an actual nightmare. He got super drunk at my house and pee on my sofa during his sleep. He then tried to cover it up by spraying it with loads of links. My husband and I played Dungeons and Dragons online with a guy for some time. He was a trucker and came through the area, so we decided to meet him. A few years later, he was on hard times, so we told him he could stay with us. Got him a job, but then he refused to go in, but lied so he wouldn't get kicked out. He yelled at my kids for being nice to him, and he talked about me behind my back. If you're reading this, frick you, Chris. No wonder you're alone. Finally, an AskReddit thread I can participate in. Met her through a favorite band of ours. They had scheduled a free concert a few hours drive from us, and I made a post asking if anyone wants to go with me. She replied. There were no tickets left when we got to booking them, but we continued to chat. I still thought I was straight back in the day, and when we met for the first time it was very awkward, but we had our first kiss and started dating. It was a long distance relationship. I started discovering my sexuality and she became extremely controlling and insecure about our relationship, constantly asking if I love her, which just made me more confused and unsure about everything. So I guess she had a reason. We broke up and blocked each other at the end. Might not be an instant regret, but I definitely regretted it after a while. We were two teenagers in their first relationship and the fault was definitely on both of us. I hope she's doing well now. The person is clingy as heck and pisses me off almost all the time. He always gets infuriated by me for not saving him in a game, and when I call him out on this bulls, like when it's not my fault, he tells me to calm down and stop getting angry. Honestly, just taking a long 3-month break from him because it can be so exhausting to be around him. And I'm also not the only one who thinks so too. A lot of his friends and people he hangs out with also say exactly what I've said here. You just described one of my friends perfectly. That's freaking scary, man. From the UK, I was a member of a large RP guild playing Dark Age of Camelot. We arranged a meet-up in town at a similarly named pub to our guild name, and I strolled to find an amazing bunch of people, several of whom I'm still in touch with today. The regret was that they were either then or have gone on to become massively great at something, really accomplished individuals, or have led fantastic lives. And here's me, 40 plus and still browsing Reddit, while trying to figure out why my machines started black screening during games. It's probably the heat. Everything's the heat's fault here, ATM. Bloody weather. You do you, man. We walked past some rainbow shirts in a store and she says, you know, I'd love to wear rainbows, but the gays have appropriated them, so if I wear them then people will think I am one of the gays. And then later she launched into a huge tirade about how she loved Asian men but only when they dressed in Western clothes, abandoned their cultural traditions and spoke English. Not instantly, but like the third time we met, he pointed a knife at me and molested me. I pretty much regret that, yeah. Good old Counter-Strike days. Had a guy in my crew named Dwayne. No idea who he was other than he was a fun hang and a good player at CS. Years later, I'm at a bar with my friend, his wife, and Dwayne, who my buddy's wife used to date. It took us a legit hour to put 2 and 2 together. He was cool. I flew to Arizona to meet a buddy I met on Banjo-Kazooie Nuts and Bolts. When I got there he threw a little party for me and we all were outside drinking and smoking. After the party died down we decided to go into the living room and play Xbox. The room was pretty dark so we couldn't see too good other than the light from the TV screen. I plopped down on the couch and it was a little uncomfortable so I was wiggling around on it but still couldn't get comfortable. I then got up and looked down at the couch and realized his grandpa sleeping on it. We instantly went outside and I then realized my life would never be the same after grinding on a 90-year-old's face. I was a member of a NFL football team's fan forum. One of the guys who posted regularly had the most humorous and energetic online personality of the whole group. We decided to meet up at one of the games. He was the most boring person I've ever met in real life. I left at halftime because I just could not stand his company anymore. I knew someone like that. Some people are just so much braver behind a screen. Turns out he's pretty racist. He tones himself down when he would play with us on TeamSpeak and later Discord. It wasn't until we got lunch together did he let his true nature be known. It was real awkward for the rest of lunch. Haven't met back up with him since. I played on a local Denver area BBS in high school. It was a portal where you could play games like Quake, Doom, and there were various mods. I found myself playing with a guy named Rebellium pretty regularly and we traded phone numbers to chat and played direct over modem since that was usually easier. Turns out he's in my grade and plays soccer in the same rec league as me. I meet up with him and a friend of his who also plays on the same BBS named VoteEKA. We don't hang out much, but go to a LAN party hosted by the BBS one time. We kind of fall out of touch for a year before I discover that he and his buddy become the perpetrators of the Columbine shooting. After college I went on a month-long road trip up the east coast of the US. Started in Florida, went up to Connecticut, and then headed west to Wisconsin. I'd posted on YouTube saying I was making this trip and looking for people to stay with along the way. One stop, I thankfully only had planned on staying there for a few hours, was in North Carolina. It was some farmhouse out in the middle of nowhere. I knocked on the door and like 5 kids answered, all ages 10-13. No parents in sight. I thought it'd be fine, and that I'd only be there for a few hours and I wanted to take a break from driving anyhow, so I stuck around. I asked if they had anything to eat while I was there, and they led me into the kitchen. They'd all been pretty awkward and quiet through all this, but it seemed normal enough. They're just awkward kids, right? They pull out some bread and peanut butter. I ask if they have any silverware and that's when I realize that the 5 of them are semicircle around me, fully blocking me in. I'm standing in the corner of this kitchen against their countertop and the 5 of them are just quiet and watching me. One kid who hadn't said anything in the half hour that it's been since I've arrived stepped forward with his hand shaking violently. I just asked for silverware, so he pulls his hand from behind his back with this massive knife. He's shaking and just says in this small scary voice, "Here's a knife," and I just put my hands up and backed even further into the corner. Whoa, what's this crap? What's going on? Getting fully ready to punch a child. He immediately set the knife down on the counter and backed away. Said he was trying to make a reference to one of my old YouTube videos where I used a huge knife to make a sandwich. Scared the heck out of me. After that, I stuck around and played some Smash Bros. Melee with him for a while, then ducked out. We met from a post on Craigslist. When I showed up there was another guy there saying it would be $25 to take him home with me. At the time I was really into him so I paid it and he's been mooching off me ever since. Food, water and litter. He also tears up my stuff. This cat can be the worst sometimes. So this one weirdly changed my life. So for context, I live in Ireland and my friend lived in Scotland. I met this guy on Xbox when I was like 14 and he's 16 back in 2012. Got to know each other super well and talked every day and played Halo and Mass Effect 3 together. We did this for 3 years and I wouldn't have considered him one of my best friends at the time. But I'd never met him. I knew all about his life. I'd spoken to some of his family before. so I was known by some of his IRL friends too. In year 4 his 360 died, so then he got a Xbox One and I got a PS4. Because of consoles we stopped talking a lot. We would catch up every now and then on Facebook and whatnot. This all changed in 2017 when he got engaged to a girl I remember him dating when we were talking. A few weeks later I start getting messages about the wedding. He contacted me to be one of his groomsmen. Now 16-year-old me made a promise that I'd go to his wedding. So I said yeah sure of course. I had just fricked myself. He later told me the wedding was in the US, which means I had to start saving to go. Let's skip to 2018. I fly out to the US for the wedding and I get to the hotel everyone is staying at. I text the groom and ask where everyone is. They are out for food. So I go get a cab and follow out to them. I walk into the restaurant. He very quickly spotted me and ran over, called out my old gamer tag and hugged me. I didn't realize how small he was. I'm only 6'1". I expected him to be taller. But after that night I found out that without something to focus on, video games, he could actually be a little bit annoying, and I had just committed to being stuck in a mansion for 4 days after this. At the time I was in a 2-year-long relationship with someone who wasn't making me happy. At the wedding I met one of the groom women. There were 2 girls and 3 guys, and instantly we clicked. We both also slagged the groom, so kinda bonded on that. We just got on super well and we decided to hang out the whole wedding. She was also in a relationship. One of the nights we kissed, and after that I knew it was over with my now ex. After the wedding and me and her were flying out on the same day and we were in the same terminal. We had a nice goodbye. I got home and broke it off with my ex. That night the girl from the wedding got dumped. We saw each other on off for a month or 2 and after that we started to get serious. I'm still with her and it's the happiest I've ever been with someone. Guy I met on a Neopets fan site. Shut up. When I was 12-13. The site ended up going down but a bunch of us stayed in touch on DeviantArt. Shut up. And MSN Messenger. It was the early 2000s. Okay, never met him in person but I would stay up all night online during the summer and chat with people on MSN. I knew some of the people from the old Neopets fan site were older teenagers and that this dude was actual adult. Can't remember how old exactly, maybe 20-30, but he'd been pretty cool up to now in the year or 2 I'd known him. Suddenly he wanted me to send him a picture of myself to know what I looked like. I wasn't cool with that, so I sent him a drawing from my DeviantArt. Shut up. He said something along the lines of it wasn't good enough and he wanted to see what I actually looked like. I remember expressing I wasn't comfortable with that, but he kept pushing back and insisting on it. I said something like if you were my friend you wouldn't keep asking, and he replied with something like I knew you'd say something like that. Little red maiden's stranger danger sense started going off and I eventually just blocked him and lost touch completely. Dozer, if you're reading this, dude, you were mega creepy and gave off pedo vibes. There was a story about a guy who met a girl on Neopets and groomed her, ended up having sex with her. He was in his 20s or 30s and she was 12. I was a huge Neopets fan but never met anyone off there. But I have met people from 4chan and it was either a total hit or a total miss. I used to play Counter-Strike with a big group of guys when I was in high school. One of them lived about 6 hours from me and we eventually started dating long distance. He was my first love. And when you're young and dumb, you accept a lot of crap that you don't deserve. During college, we broke up on several occasions, and during one of the breakups, I met someone else, but it didn't work out. We eventually got back together, but the possibility of me moving on enraged him. He started slapping me around, forcing himself on me, and verbally abusing me. I believed him when he said he would ruin my life if I left and that no one would love me. I'm ashamed to admit that I stayed with him and tried to make it work for another 2 years until he cheated on me and invited the girl over while I was staying with him. Dang. Hope you're a happy croissant now that it's over. Back in the day when I played World of Warcraft, about 12 guildies met up from across the country at the guild master's place where he and his girlfriend lived. It went great, had an awesome time, did it again the following year, with 1 or 2 additions. New girl ended up sleeping with the guild master. Guild master and girlfriend broke up, so did the guild in solidarity with the girlfriend. She's doing great. We all went no contact with the guild master and the other girl. Met a bunch of people through a movie website. Became really close to one guy to the point that he friended my wife on FB. We knew he was HIV positive but we thought it was under control. We found out he was hospitalized so we thought as a nice gesture we'd phone him. Had a great talk. We laughed and told terrible inside jokes. After about 15 minutes his nurse told him that he needed rest. We said goodbye and said we'd talk soon. The next week he messages my wife and I to thank us for the call and that it meant the world to him. We ended the message with I love you and a plan to visit soon. 5 days later we find out he died because his HIV had made him so weak that when he was diagnosed with cancer, about 2 weeks before we chatted on the phone, that he had to make a choice to get radiation therapy, extend his life by about 6 months, or just accept his fate. He accepted his fate. I regret not seeing him IRL but I'll never regret that phone call or my last words to him being I love you. Not me but a female friend did and really regretted it. They were in a WoW guild together and he seemed okay. He eventually found out where she lived and flew from Canada to Alabama and then drove for nearly 2 hours to her home and got let in by her clueless uncle. He went and sat on her bed until she came out of the bathroom. All of this was completely unplanned and unannounced. He showed up thinking he was going to sweep her off her feet and away from her boyfriend. He told her as much and she freaked out and kicked him out of her house. The real kicker is he tried it again 7 months later. This time he had also been messaging her boyfriend and all her friends showing them fake message logs between her and him about how much they were in love and how much he hated them. Luckily the friends got wise pretty fast and started talking about it and figured it out. After this they booted him from the guild and he actually made a new account and got back in for a while but eventually got caught because of his typing habits and he started asking about her again. He has also tried a few times over the last 7 years to find a way to talk to her. To this day she's still afraid of him just showing up again but luckily she doesn't live anywhere near where she did and she's more cautious with her information. I had been talking to this girl for a little bit. We decided to go on a date on the beach with her friends, which was really nice actually. She looked a little different than her pic but whatever. When I went home she texted me asking me to define the relationship. Being 17 I panicked and said are you my girlfriend? I ended up going to see her and meet her family. Twice she never came to me and it was 2 hours away. Her mom was great but her dad hated me. He's homophobic. That's not the bad part. The bad part was 2 months later when I actually liked this girl. She went to be a counselor at a Christian camp and texted me to tell me God wants us to break up. So yeah. I didn't regret it at all but I was really good friends with a guy I met on Yahoo Messenger when I was around 12 who I ended up meeting. We would talk on and off for 6 years after that and always got along super well and enjoyed talking to one another when we did. We had each other's phone numbers and would text, and even remember a phone call one time super well that we've talked about a couple of times. I told him pretty much everything and would talk his ear off, which is crazy because I was a pretty shy and introverted teen. We both dated other people and went through most of our teen years only being good friends. Although I had feelings for him I honestly always assumed he wasn't into the long distance thing so I never tested the waters I guess other than some harmless flirting. Then at 19, he would have been 21. We both confessed we had feelings for each other and have like forever. We dated a year-ish before he decided he was going to move down to where I live and he did just that. This was before he had ever even met me in person so it was a pretty huge leap and scary, though he never admitted he was scared. LOL. Seeing him in the airport was so surreal and awesome. I was nervous about my looks and he just saw me and we both smiled and hugged. We've been together for 7 years now, got married, and we're expecting our first child in November. I used to draw a lot on X and generally browse 4chan. I was going through a lot of depression and I felt alienated from friends and family, as well as the death of a long relationship. Somehow just talking to other people about the most mundane stuff felt so amazing. I was in a few Skype groups, we would chat about life, play online games and stuff. One couple was nice and the guy was trying to quit smoking. Another guy just got a promotion at work. You know, real people with life. They all were far away, until I get this email. I was going to delete it because it seemed weird but I read it. It was a case of mistaken identity. He thought I was this person who also did modeling cosplay or something because of my email name. I corresponded and corrected them but we just kept talking. He also loved paranormal stuff, was into films and writing too, and close by. After a month or so of daily talks and texts, we wanted to hang out. Between all this, I was moving out and in a bad spot emotionally, but he was very nice and talked me through anxious parts. I met him and sparks flew. No, actually I couldn't look him in the eyes and got sweaty because I realized how cute he was and how much I felt like an idiot. We did kiss, and as cliche as it sounds, it felt like when Dorothy entered Oz, my life had color again. Anyway, it ended well because we're getting married this year. That's sweet as frick. Doesn't fit the prompt, but still, very sweet. Congratulations. I met a guy while playing Vanilla WoW. We quickly became friends. We ran a successful guild together and pretty much talked every day. I can honestly say this person that lived across the country was my best friend. After about 6 years of playing, he was heading down to FL and could stop by my place on the way. We hang out, drink beer, play some PS4, and then he left. It was a great night. After nearly 13 years of friendship, he is still my best friend. We talk every day still, and my only regret is we can't hang out more. In that time we have both gotten married, had kids. He has been on 2 tours in the army and live on opposite sides of the US. A 5-hour difference, but we have always managed to stay in touch. If you are new to the channel, you can subscribe. I publish new videos every day. Until then, check another video. Bye for now.